So this is my review for Werewolves. Now, I was actually really excited for this movie. Like, I'm always looking for a good, entertaining werewolf movie. I feel like there has been that many really entertaining, great werewolf movies lately. And I like the main actor, Frank Grillo. I think he's a great actor, and I thought the trailer looked pretty fun and entertaining. Like, you had the one line in the trailer where Frank Grillo's character goes, "Bite me," which I did thought that came off a little cheesy, but I thought, okay, maybe this could be really fun, over the top, cheesy, entertaining werewolf movie. So I was excited for this movie. Let me start with the positives. I think the practical suits for the werewolves, I think they look great in this. Like, to me, I love the design of the werewolves in this. I can see some people saying maybe the werewolves look a little goofy in this movie, but I actually really love how they look in this movie. Like, I love the fact they went practical with the werewolves. Like, I'm glad they didn't do the whole like American Werewolf in Paris movie where you had a CGI werewolf in that. Where sometimes with werewolf movies they go CGI, but I always think it looks better practical with werewolves. And again, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with CGI. I think there's times where CGI looks really well. I think there's other times where practical looks better. It all comes down to the movie and how it's executed in the movie. But I love the designs of werewolves in the movie, so I'm glad it went practical. So that's definitely the biggest positive about this movie. Another positive is that I did sort of like the lore in this. The whole idea of a supermoon that comes out at night and people blowing up their houses. Because the whole idea they said with this movie is that if you took Pose and a werewolf movie and combine it together, which definitely reminded me of the Pose movies. And you had the main guy even from Pose Anarchy and Pose 3, the second and third Pose movie, Frank Gore. Was for me to say this, I actually do like the second Pose movie, Pose Anarchy. That's like the only one I like in that franchise. But the idea of taking that concept of those movies and combining with werewolf movie, I think could have been really interesting. So that, like, like I said, I sort of like the role at the supermoon. There's some negatives about that though that I felt like the execution could have been better. But at least the idea of a supermoon chasing people into werewolves, where they're both have to stay in their homes during that one night, and it, no matter if you look at the moon, you turn into a werewolf automatically. I think that could have been really cool if the execution was better handled in this movie. And I would say this is one that's kind of in the middle. I thought the characters were fine. I think Fangirl is fine in this movie, but the characters were just kind of forgettable in this movie. Like they didn't. I didn't hate the characters, but I never really felt like invested in them, and I just didn't really find myself caring about any of them. And they just weren't all that interesting. So the characters were just kind of, to me, just forgettable. Like, I didn't dislike the characters, but they also didn't particularly stand out to me either. Now, the negatives with this movie is that there's a lot of times where this movie doesn't make sense. Like I was hitting at earlier with the whole Supermoon thing, I think the execution of that could have been handled better with the lore in this movie, where you could have fussed it out more. And I felt like they would at times change the rules of how the supermoon works in this movie, where it just felt like at times it didn't make sense. And I just think they need to fuss out the lore more, which I feel like they just didn't execute it that well in this movie. Another negative with this movie is that I just felt like it just wasn't as fun as it could have been. There's times where this movie's trying to be serious and emotional, and it just didn't work in this movie. And the problem with that is that, like, when you have like a line like that, like Frank Grillo's character says, "Bite me," you have cheesy lines like that in this movie. It's like the tone was kind of like trying to be the cheesy, over the top, fun werewolf movie, but then it's also trying to be this emotional movie at times. We have characters sitting down and talking to each other, having these emotional conversations, and I don't think I don't think this movie really knew what tone it was trying to be in this movie. And I wish it just like I'm all fine if you want to have emotional moments in a werewolf movie, as long as you make the characters actually interesting. But since the characters aren't really all that interested in this movie, and I just didn't really care about any of the characters, the tone being over the place when it comes to it trying to be an over the top cheesy werewolf movie and trying to be emotional, it just didn't really click together, the tone in this movie. The two tones in this movie. And another thing is, I thought some of the werewolf action was decent in this movie, but I felt like the action could have been better in this movie. And there's some bad dialogue, I think, at times too in this movie when it comes to the cheesy dialogue. But overall, it's just I just found this movie to be a very forgettable movie. It's a very like middle of the road average movie to me. Like I didn't hate it. It's to me, it's I found it watchable. Like I had like an okay time with it, but it's just a very forgettable movie. And I just think this movie could have been a lot more fun with the idea of taking a pose. The idea of putting the pose with a werewolf movie, I just sounds like that could have been so much more entertaining and fun in this movie. And the execution just felt to me kind of flat. Like not, I didn't think this was bad. I can totally understand some people watching this movie and thinking it's terrible. It's just for me, it was very middle of the road movie to me, and it just didn't really leave a impression on me when it came to the story, characters, really anything about the movie. Like I said, the best thing about the movie is really the practical werewolf designs, and that's really the best. Like I said, the best thing about the movie. Everything else is kind of like okay when it comes to the characters. Like you have this one female character in the movie where even with her, she's just kind of forgettable too. So it's just like all the characters are just like very just forgettable to me. Like I didn't dislike any of them, but they just everything about this movie was just very middle of the road. So you know, I can't say I would recommend this movie. Like I would say like check it out on a streaming service. It's not a movie I said you like need to go out to theaters when it came out, but it's just it's a very like average middle road movie that I felt like could have been more fun and entertaining personally. So that's my thoughts on werewolves. Until next time, movie fans.